Well, welcome, everybody. Glad to see you guys joining us for this week's question and answer period. We've got a few things I wanted to touch on. We'll answer some of your questions, and then, I'm kind of ready for whatever. One thing we literally just did this week that I wanted to kind of go over with you guys is if you guys do have an entity that you filed, let me make sure I can share this right here. Is that you need to do before the end of the year? I believe before the end of the year, you need to do your BOIE filing. So BOI is, again, it's another level of government reporting. You just go to BOI filing. Just type in BOI. See if I can get the home page for you guys. Here we go. All right, let me share this with you guys. I literally just did it this week. So we've had, basically, I think they announced it at the beginning of the year, and we have to the end of the year. So one of my team basically reminded me we had to do it. And it's relatively simple. All you really need, if you have an entity, let's say an LLC or an S Corp or a C Corp, would be to get your EIN number. And if you probably need your license, a picture of your license. And those are really the only two things you need. Other than that, you just need some addresses and things like that. They'll want your social security number, or at least the last four of your social security number. But yeah, let me share my screen real quick right here. There you go. So this is what it looks like. You'll just need to click on the file that, and then you can print off a PDF, or you can file online. And it's relatively easy. Again, it goes through, asks you questions, a couple different aspects here, and then you submit it. And then I went ahead and downloaded the receipt, and I uploaded it and put it in our finance folder in our drive, so that we now have our own version of it or copy of it in case they tend to lose things. Our local government lost my tax return a couple weeks ago. So anyway, I'm not taking any chances. We always keep copies of anything that we've submitted to the government, copies of receipts for payments, all that kind of stuff, because they tend to lose track of things rather easily. So that was a business tip of the week, I guess, to make sure you do have those filed before the end of the year. And so that was that. Let's see what else. So last week I was at the Strawberry Conference down in the Carolinas, and we also did a strawberry tour. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and pull up some pictures of this. I thought you guys might enjoy seeing pictures of exactly what we saw when we visited. There was some tips on growing, a lot of tips on e-com. So let me make sure I'm in the right folder here, and then I can share those pictures with you. All right, so okay, here we go. All right, here we go. Let's see, I think this is the right one right here. Yep, there we go. All right, so these are just a couple slides from one of the presentations I did go to. This was nice because it really did give you a good idea of exactly what it takes to put in an acre of strawberries. And this is something I think we're a little weak on in our strawberry course, just kind of the hours involved. But I would say that it did not take us, maybe it did take us about 100 hours for 100 hours for planting. When you add up all the different people we had out there, I'm just trying to think across the acre, because we did plant an acre. I'm just trying to think the number of people we had. Actually, I think it was far less than that. I think that is way too much. It took Caleb and I about 5 man-hours to lay an acre of plastic. And then it took us, I'm trying to think, we had like 8 people for like 6 hours. So I'd say 60 hours. There's nowhere near that you'd be 100 hours. But anyway, it was a good, interesting thing to see. Frost protection, yes, 10 to 20 hours, absolutely. Fertilization, this was good to see, just some actual experience fertilization rates. They talked about different varieties and why to pick them. And some frost freeze and stuff. That was really interesting to see the actual science behind this frost freeze stuff. Basically comes down to gallons of water per hour, and how much heat that water emits while it's freezing. And so that's how that works there. This was an actual picture that he shared of a field after, an all-nighter of freezing it. And that was like 2 to 3 inches of ice. So again, yeah, really, really interesting. I can't imagine having that much water in your field, but it definitely was very interesting to kind of just see how that worked out for them. Let's see. This was a sign that we saw at I'll get to this in a minute here. I'll come back to this in a minute here. Let's go back out here. Now we get to the farm tours that we visited. So this was one of the farm tours here. Just look how awful that nutsedge is. So they were planted about 2.5 weeks before we got there. These were cutoffs. And you can just see how horrible the nutsedge was in that situation. And it seems like a fair amount of folks down there use this plastic piping for irrigation. So they use this and then they'll just cut it in pieces. And if they want to move it off the field or something like that. So I thought that was very fascinating that they don't use metal pipe that much anymore. Just some equipment here. This was a Redding, I believe, was the brand. They don't have it on there. Mulch layer. And this is pretty, let's see, is that, no. Pretty common down there. This is not an auto track. This is just lays out regular plastic, but this did have a setup for doing fumigation because a lot of folks down there do a lot of fumigation. This is how they mark the beds. So you can see here, it's these 2 wheels, which make sure it stays on top of the bed. And then you can see here, these marker wheels just go around and mark the 2 rows. So I definitely thought of making one of these. I think we could actually use it quite well. And our beds are tall enough that we probably could go ahead and figure out how to put these wheels on. That actually wouldn't be very hard at all. I could probably make most of this. And across the street can make these parts right here for me. So, yeah, he had this just sitting down there. And I probably should have just said, can I buy this off you? Because he wasn't using it. Anyway, got that. Cotton is still a thing down there. This is a field that hadn't been picked yet. This was a relatively large agritourism site. I forget exactly what it's called, but it had a massive indoor restaurant. They could seat about 300 people, and they will fill that place every Christmas season, multiple for weeks on end. It's an absolute madhouse. This is the agriculture commissioner for North Carolina. This was just kind of a view of the entire place. Hay rides through the woods. In the woods, they had a bunch of Christmas tree lights. This was their new strawberry barn. So, I mean, this was 5,000-6,000 square feet of space there at least. It had to be about 50 feet wide by at least 120. Beautiful little pond there. And then this was their strawberry fields that were out front of that. So again, they're using a lot of annual ryegrass, the seed down between it. Annual ryegrass to control the weeds. Now, interesting thing we were thinking of is a lot of the guys down there do use electric fence to keep the deer out, but they're only using a 1 strand. And then for daytime deterrent, they're just using these basically like streamers, and it seems to work for them. So I thought that was really interesting. All right, so then this place also had a wedding venue. I mean, this place was ginormous. They've been going for about 30 years. Wedding venue. And then this was inside their, I guess, products. I guess they called it Products of North Carolina barn. And you can see just how extensive that place was. Let's see if we get this picture to load here for you. But yeah, you can just see this was, giant. Again, absolute huge place. We visited another site that did a lot of agritourism. So this was just one of the buildings they had there. I thought the roof was kind of cool. They had a massive slide right here. They also had a gem mining area, and they did about 1.5 acres of strawberries. So I thought that was relatively interesting. These were some of the fields of strawberries. They already had them covered up for the fall, I think, because they're relatively small. They did their own ice cream there as well. This was another farm that we visited. You can just see the field right there. I think about 300, 400, 500, probably like 400-foot long rows of strawberries. Had an on-farm market. They had an on-farm kitchen. This was part of the kitchen there. Just some different pictures of items and stuff they were creating. They were doing their own peas and stuff. All right. Let's see what else we had here. Yeah, so that was pretty much the conference. I think my biggest takeaway from that conference was the amount of chemicals that folks are using in the strawberry industry. It is a dirty dozen, and it's not just California spraying the chemicals. I mean, these guys were talking about spraying every single week of the season, and a little excessive if you ask me. We just added these gauge wheels to our, one last thing to talk about the strawberries. So 2 years ago, I think we tried Ruby June. We weren't really happy with the variety, although we did like how we had a late flush of fruit off of it. And I mentioned that to, I think, the team. Flavor was great, but the yield was poor. The plants were small. This year I'm down there and I'm talking to some of the breeders. This is the really awesome thing about going to these conferences is you get the who's who of who's there. And the strawberry industry was there. I mean, all the big players. And they were talking about how Ruby June will bear up to 12 weeks if you give it enough fertilizer. And that was the important thing, is that you really need to push the fertilizer at it. So they're talking about up to 13 pounds of nitrogen per week, which again is absolutely mind-blowing in our world, because we typically don't put on supplemental nitrogen. But they were talking about it. They gave me a kind of an idea of it. And he was pretty confident that, again, Chandler's great for that first flush, but he said we'd probably be way happier if we were looking for a longer season to switch almost completely to Ruby June and just really manage the fertility with the sap test and make sure we give them enough juice to keep going. So that was definitely a big takeaway of the conference. This disease was a big takeaway of the conference, the NEOP disease. And a lot of the data they're looking at shows that the NEOP was actually caused by sprays that were put on the plants that weakened the plants. And so really to be able to have that information and kind of be able to know that, we're on to something when it comes to growing, organically. So, growing organically is the way to keep a lot of these diseases away. All right, so this is an undercutter. We use this here on the farm a lot Right now we're in the middle of carrot season, so we're pulling carrots. We use it for comfrey. We use it for sorrel. We use it to lift plastic in the spring. So all sorts of things. Ryan Thiessen, who's the one who, this is his equipment, just made these new brackets, which you can, I guess we can kind of, I'll just zoom in on them right here. So this is the bracket. It attaches to these two bolts here, which I don't know if you guys can see. I don't know why you can't see it. Anyway, yeah, you can at least see the two bolts there. Can't see my mouse, I guess. But then this bracket holds the wheel, and it'll allow us to set the height in the soil. So this will be great because this likes to dive too deep. And so with this, I won't have to look back. I can literally just focus on driving the tractor straight. And this will only go into the depth that I need it. So we're super excited to have this. Now, granted, it's sopping wet out there, so we're going to have to wait till Monday to lift carrots. But we are super excited to have this and be able to use it to get the rest of those carrots out of the field. So I've been waiting for a while for these parts to come, and we're glad to have them. All right, so there you go. I think that was kind of all the pictures I guys wanted to show you. We're actually still picking figs, which is kind of surprising. We still have figs at the farm here, which was kind kind of amazing that we're still picking them. Mainly out of the greenhouse. We picked a few out of the field today, one of the things. But tonight's frost will get down to about 30 degrees. And then next week, we're going to hit 23 degrees. So with that kind of temperatures, that will probably take the rest of the figs out. So, within a couple of weeks, we'll probably go ahead and cut the plants back significantly, leave the plant material that we want to grow out. And then with that, with what we want to grow out, we'll then go ahead and insulate that with a lot of straw and a tarp to keep that alive over the winter. And the biggest thing on the figs is we're going to espalier them, basically like train them flat. And so we can have a lot more shoots coming up. And because for us, actually, we make more money on the cuttings than we do the actual fruit. We want to basically have the right size of trunk. So again, if we are growing off the base, a lot of them this year were way oversized, too large. And so if we can train them, the side shoots that will shoot up will all be the right size for us to use. So that's what we're looking for that. So so at this time of the year, out of the field, we're still harvesting spinach, radishes. We finished the last of the broccoli, cauliflower this week. We still have broccoli side shoots coming this week. The daikon came out. All the Napa cabbage came out this week. We will be taking out the rest of the regular cabbage in the field will probably be a couple weeks away. We have lettuce in the field still under double cover. Scallions out in the field, kohlrabi out in the field, carrots, which we're trying to desperately get out. But we're right in the middle of a big new cooler project, which we will record step by step for you guys, so you get to see every single step along the way of how that cooler project comes together. So we're still trying to pull stuff out of the field, build a new cooler, so we don't have a lot of storage space. So it's kind of a shuffling right now. But the cooler project got delayed a little bit just because of the costs involved and the problems we have with our strawberry crop this fall. So we're still going to try to finish it by end of year, but there's a lot still involved in that. So anyway, if you guys, I'm going to go over to the Facebook group now. Let's just check to see if there's any questions over there. Answer some other questions that you may have. And if you guys want to put a question in the chat, feel free. It's the right place here. All right. All right. Adam was asking about software called FarmBright. So it is not something that I'm familiar with. In fact, I don't think it was even on the table when we were researching softwares a couple of years ago. So I can't tell you what to do with it. Adam is always up to something down in Dallas-Fort Worth area, and his greenhouse looks really nice. It's a full aquaponic greenhouse or hydroponic greenhouse. It's looking good. The question is, all right, so covering strawberries in the fall. So that's a great question. So we typically will start covering strawberries after Thanksgiving, typically. So we want to see several nights in the 20s, and that really tells the plants to kind of shut down and go to bed. And so then we'll go ahead and put a single cover over them for the winter. There's two reasons for that. One, to keep the deer off. Two, to protect them from the really cold weather and try to keep the crowns from freezing too badly. This year, we actually have covers on now, and the reason with that is to try to push the plants a little bit. So the goal is really to kind of get the plants to grow a little bit more into the plastic because we planted a little bit late and get some better crown development. So we'll kind of see what the plants look like here in another week or so and see if you're going to take that because Thanksgiving is next week. So we typically take it off about Thanksgiving if we're gonna let the plants harden off until Christmas. But yeah, we haven't had super cold temps yet. The lowest we've actually been is around 31. So really like very mild. I mean, we still have canna lilies in the field that are still, we want to dig them, but we can't because they're still not fully dead. So we'll be, we'll probably be digging in another week or so after we finally get this pretty hard freeze next week and pull that out of the field. So yeah. So, and putting straw on them, really, if you're using row covers, you don't need to straw your strawberries over the tops of the plant. We will this year, mainly because our goal is to slow down the plants. And so we'll actually go through and we'll leave the straw out of the pathways, which we normally put it in the pathways, and we'll just put it on top of the plants. We'll go down and basically just shake it on top of the plants. And that will keep the plastic cool and slow the field down and allow us to pick later in the season. So it does get a little bit hairy when we are then trying to go ahead and fertigate the fields, because you literally now have to treat every block or every section a little bit differently. And so it means put fertilizers on at different times. That means more sap tests. But because we're making so much money off our strawberry system, it really actually doesn't hurt us too badly. So yeah, we'll be trying that this year, seeing how well that works. And the goal this year is to have an 8-week picking season, and just get past, when kids get out of school. And again, we're looking for berries for ourselves too, because we now have the kitchen and we're looking to be able to process those, turn those into slushies, that sort of stuff. So again, a lot happening on the strawberry world. Definitely looking forward to the springtime, and we haven't gotten into fall yet. So, all right, folks, that seems to be all the questions that we've got here. If you guys do have more questions, feel free to drop in the Facebook group. Reach out to Bray directly. She'll get the questions to me, and I'll get it answered for you. But you guys have a great rest of your night.